My heartfelt greetings to everyone here and a warm welcome to all the leaders, entrepreneurs, corporate professionals, and above all, every learner for joining into the 5th World Storytelling Congress. Your presence is a mark of deep yearning for learning and your relentless pursuit for excellence. On behalf of the 29th World HRD Congress, I, Sagarika Dev Burman, welcome you as your moderator for today in this section of the event. Every human being has a story to tell, and that can change someone else's life. As leaders, we play a very important role in telling stories as a key feature of everyday organizational communication. Facts and figures have their own role and place. However, people need to hear stories of challenge and success. Why? Because they need to engage with the information they are learning and they need to know how to implement the strategies. In order to enable this and really discover the skill of storytelling, we have in our midst some very skillful and erudite storytellers. Our first storyteller for today is Miss SUNAYANA NAIR. She is a writer, podcast producer, and host, a media and communication expert across verticals. She is often described as an astute competition mapper, and she leads the development and production team at TALKCXOLIFE as editor. Her conversations with top business leaders of APAC have led her to redefine stories around success. Welcome, Sunayana.
Hi, Dr. Sagarika. Thank you so much for the warm welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
To hear from you.
Right. Good day to everyone. Good morning, good evening. I don't know what part of the world you are from right now. And, in terms of stories, I've always tried to find, some kind of pattern and develop stories out of it. So I just couldn't help but notice all the lovely ladies stacked in the middle. And there's always a sense of edginess, isn't it, in terms of anything that's there within the middle, like the middle age crisis, which I just hit it. And so anyway, and with like how Anjali said, there are two, the fever of cricket with IPL, and I just feel like some kind of middle order batsman coming up and trying to sustain interest, some kind of momentum going on with such wonderful presentations with, the three gentlemen earlier. So thank you very much. Time to get going. What I will be presenting on is three different aspects. One is the importance of oral storytelling. The other being authentic communication and how we kind of figure podcasts within this. I hope I've not bitten more than I can chew here. I'll try and take this as soon as possible. So I'll just need to be sharing my screen right now. So it says, listen carefully, and at the end, you'll be someone else. Now, these are not my words, but they are of Vyasa. I'm sure most of us must be knowing. He is right up there. He wrote the Mahabharata, and he's supposed to have told this to a male descendant. I shouldn't actually say male descendant, but that's how it's described. Before he begins narrating the Mahabharata, to make the person understand the kind of knowledge that it encapsulates. Now, these are various texts, pictures which represent the Mahabharata, and several studies have shown the Mahabharata along with the Bhagavad Gita. If you listen to it, it just changes your perception. And why is that? It's because stories are known to influence and change and modify behavior. So imagine being a part of something and being able to completely change a person's behavior, right? That's what we're going to be discussing right now. India has always been an audio first country. So there's no debate about that. We've had, why are stories so important is also the fact that it's so intertwined with our culture, with any culture for that matter. Our ancestors used to gather around, share stories, and they have been been a part of the various art, various religion, even religion. It just keeps piling on. Studies have also indicated that oral storytelling has been around as long as human language, and if not before. In fact, the power of Oli in Hawaii, which has been documented much until 1892, and in Hawaii, people would chant, right? They wouldn't even, there was no language, there was no script. So they would just they would just keep chanting. They would gather around and record information through chants. Now, why am I telling all this is to take you through the power of the spoken word. Sound is also one of the first senses to develop along with the sense of touch in a fetus as young as 3 weeks. And coming back to Mahabharata, we all know the story, rather most of us know the story of Abhimanyu, right? He's known to have heard the power of how the solution of going and breaking the Chakravyuh. Now, radio stimulates the creation of mental images in the listener's minds. And it does so because when you're listening, right, it's known to activate. You're just listening and it's supposed to conjure mental images, which helps you in retaining attention. Now, where are we going with the current context, with the digital narrative? In the new digital world with media space being infinite, I mean, there's a dichotomy of sorts. But right now, if we were to compare with the influential campaigns, what we would consider, which would be bang on spot in terms of conveying within the 30-second soundbite limit, now we have an infinite media space, right, compared with decades ago. And that's all because of the new digital world. Everybody has a place, everybody has a platform to come and opinionate, to speak, and we also know the dangers of it. Social media platforms have not only changed the media landscape, but have also allowed everyone to broadcast and connect with those familiar, no matter how rare or further apart, in the sense that it's all about meeting people whom you can share a certain level of relate to, like, even previously we did speak about the importance of relating and of connecting. If you look at, about 20, now this is the Forbes top brands, in terms of value, if you look at it. It's very interesting, of course, all of them, all the top 5 are technology brands, but also if you look at it, if you look at Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, I think Netflix also should be here by next year. But if you look at it, it's all about sharing experiences and community building, right? But when does the bus become the buzzkill? You have, what's the dichotomy here? That you have so many platforms, everybody is accessible. We are talking right now virtually. I'm in Mumbai, I don't know where each one of us is really connecting from. This entire COVID scenario, all of the world has been going as if it is normal, but still there is some kind of a lag, isn't it? There is some kind of a lack that we face. Now, why? Because the scarcest resource right now is trust. There is, whereas we have these points, you only have that much of an instant of you either disconnect or you connect with a brand, with a story. And why this so? Perhaps because of the obsession with visibility. And what we need to figure and what we need to remember here is that it's not just as, of course, it's important to be visible, but it's also to be heard, to be understood, to be trusted and respected. And therefore, that's where you get your engagement from. Now, this is a very interesting model by Altimeter, which was published in Brand Quarterly, which I thought was very interesting in terms of touching upon why trust is so important. Now, there are 7 steps in any customer journey before they become your advocates. One is awareness. Of course, they come to know of your brand. Consideration. Then there's an evaluation. There is purchase. After purchase, what happens? Oh, they experience it. Then there's loyalty, and finally, advocacy. Now, if we were to look at each of these phases, and each of these phases, if you were to apply the theory of being authentic, Okay, just being true to each and every, first of all, understanding what is it that the customer needs. Because without authenticity, um, I mean, you have authenticity, but without understanding what your customer really needs, you won't really know. These, at every stage, what we were looking at is, and within that, if you look at it, if it goes on smoothly from each and every stage, because there are several touch points, and these are social touch points, right? These are dynamic. I can open my mobile if I go and purchase. If I'm going and purchasing, I just go and open and see, do I get the same model at a lesser price? And if it's at a lesser price, what are the feedback about it? I can just WhatsApp my friend and ask, hey, who's maybe has purchased this, and ask, what is your experience with this? So the touch points being immediate, but also the influence loop that is generated out of that. It's called as the social atoms, that it passes from one end to the other, and within that vortex is your influence, a dynamic influence loop. Now, what do you mean by being authentic? We've been talking about authenticity, but what exactly do you mean by being authentic, and that too in this world, and why is it important, right? Now it's like, why am I, ask a child, you don't need to go and tell the child be authentic, because the child is authentic. But at the same time, can we be authentic? Can leaders be authentic? How authentic can you be? You can't really speak your mind, but what it means here is to listen. Use each of those phases and be willing to receive as much as you're willing to give, right? The extent to which consumers perceive a brand to be faithful towards itself, true to its consumers, motivated by caring and responsibility, and able to support consumers, is being true to themselves. Now, what it really boils down to is one question that you need to ask is, do I want my audience to care? And why is, and so the importance of authentic storytelling comes in with three major factors. Is one is that you forge an instant and deeper connection with the audience. You're not afraid to stand alone, and it spurs action, right? Now, in terms of spurring action and building community, which is what we want, we cannot be standalone anymore. And we need to, if you need to rely and you need to leverage on the power of, you know, several forces, the vortex that we spoke of. Now, where does podcast come in here? Podcasts are, now what are podcasts? Podcasts are audio and video files. I'll just take you through quickly. They are video files that can be downloaded to a desktop computer, iPod, or any other portable media device. All right. The term podcasting was derived from iPod and broadcasting. And this happened with the decline of radio dramas in 2010 because of the lack of production, high production costs rather. And sound design got digitized, but still the production costs were high. And that is when in 2004, MTV VJ Adam Curry had a program created using RSS feed to deliver the audio files directly to his computer so that he didn't have to waste time downloading it. But it was in 2005 when Apple updated its iTunes 4.9, that's the first software version, to have provided a fully integrated podcast support, that podcasting was brought into the cultural mainstream. Okay, and we have about over 1 billion subscriptions through iTunes alone. Now, to just put this all together, if you were to look at an analogy, and we spoke of being right in the middle, there is our favorite sandwich. If you look at sandwich, I mean, there's an interesting story behind the sandwich too. The fourth Earl of Sandwich, he just asked for, he didn't even invent the sandwich. He asked his attendant to just put in some meat between two loaves of bread and serve it to him. And what he did with that was he contributed so much to gastronomy, right? If you look at podcasts, it's kind of more or less similar in terms of sandwiches. Why? Because it's authentic, it is affordable, and it is, there's a lot of relatability here in terms of, sorry, not relatability, but you have go into podcasting, right? The number one reason is why we've been talking is in terms of authenticity. Hello. Yes. Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. In terms of keeping conversation versus reporting, I think Francisco did speak about corporate communications being really boring, and I've been there. But between being informal and formal, you have several stories with your employees, you know, and Mr. Sean said that too. If you could take one bit of it, one employee, and highlight that, that itself could be a story, and that could be authentic. Freedom to take risks and to experiment. A podcast doesn't need to follow a definite format or a definite, of course, there are formats and genres that you need to that will obviously cater to, but there is a lot more of risks because there are a lot less risks involved in terms of doing a podcast. And of course, there's a level of intimacy when you're listening and you're being transported into, a completely different world. It is relatable, and it's extremely important, of course, to be relatable. And it's a low entry barrier. Almost anyone can set up a podcast, with the right amount of technology and, of course, the content. Now, when you look at designing the podcast, what is it that, what's important is the sandwich panel theory. I'm not talking the sandwich theory, which, is about sugarcoating bad news with do good news, rather the other way around. But the sandwich panel theory speaks of the outer layers, which are invariably thin but dense, and the middle layer, which is kind of thick but soft. Now, where do you use this? What are the salient features of this? Is its strength, its lightness, and versatility. And in the same way, when you look at in terms of podcast, when you're trying to design a podcast, what are your outer layers? There will be a structure, of course, which will be more studied and applied, which will be the format of your show, the duration, the frequency, and the marketing. When you're looking at the format of the show, it will be, is it a one-on-one interview, or is it just a narrative? Are you going to be telling a story, which is, by the way, the most difficult to do, but also it has the highest amount of engagement. And in terms of duration, how long is it going to be? How short is it going to be? Are you going to slice up the conversation? Because listeners, there are all kinds of listeners who do not have that much time. Now, when are these listeners listening to podcasts, right? They usually listen when they're commuting. And the biggest feature of podcasts is obviously that when you're... Hello?
This is from Sagarika. You have 5 more minutes in it.
Right. Oh, okay. So I'll just rush it. Okay. And right in the middle is the authenticity, right? Not a single, there's no single recipe. The genre, the topics, the voice, everything is very different here, and that's what really creates the flow. This is about it in terms of you need to plan it to the P. You need to keep it real. Collaborate with people more than who are there within your field, and get out and know who all are there who can help you with who already have perhaps a podcast that you've thought about. Research it, your genres. Your genre is going to be very important here also, because it's going to tell you what's your audience going to look like, and you might not know about it, but you definitely need to understand where you're going to go. And you need to create what you care for, which is the long-term commitment. Now, with TALKCXOLIFE, I'm sorry, I'm just going to play some clippings of CXOs that I had interviewed. And why is this authentic and why it's important is because we started TALKCXOLIFE with the entire objective of telling stories on success, which are different, which aren't unidimensional. And the snippets of my conversation are not about their work. And these also take really, it takes a little bit of guts to talk also certain things that they have shared. They've put their, they've shown their vulnerable side. And so I just hope you get, you like this. So he's an artist. He paints. These are all his paintings.
Sunayana, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think it's time for us to, I would like to.
Sorry. So I just like to,
Right now, just one question to you from me. How do you get the best? Can you hear?
Yeah.
How do you get the best results from your audience who are listening to your podcasting in the form of a storytelling?
The best results. Okay. We've had people who come up and tell us, first of all, it's in terms of the connections that you make, even with the people that you're interviewing and the CXOs and the leaders, because you profiling them in a completely different light. And we obviously also have had through our social pages, which were there, and people writing to us saying that, the kind of value that they have seen. Moreover, in terms of, you will understand that these conversations are not very easy to get into also in the first place, also for the CXO to talk about, because all of them are really chasing numbers. And when you tell them that to drop your guard down and give us like about 2 hours, 1.5, 2 hours of your time, and they do so, and they come out in a way transformed. I cannot explain the experience. Some of them, they say that I thought it's going to be easy, but it is not. And you actually share a very different rapport with them after that. In terms of listenership, We've had, of course, ups and downs. It's a very different niche. And incidentally, when I mentioned about genres, it's also because we were trying to understand who our audience was first. You know, first we thought it's going to be management. We when define ourselves as management, it wasn't really showing much attraction. And then we said, okay, hobbies, and it's not even about hobbies. It finally, it was more in terms of wellness. So
we'll have to halt here for the next.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry for hogging so much time.
And you had a number of beautiful points, right from mythology to modern times. And about buskill was a beautiful point that you mentioned, from bus to buskill, and engaging the audience in the process of podcasting and storytelling. Wonderful, Sunayana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.